Railways rarely gamble on ideas that sound unreasonable on paper, yet one machine forced an entire system to rethink what was possible. It delivered unmatched speed, shook stations to their foundations, and solved a performance problem nobody else could touch at the time. It also pushed crews, engineers, and infrastructure to their limits in ways that were never fully tamed. Every mile it ran came with trade-offs that were accepted, tolerated, and eventually retired. The story behind it is not about nostalgia or spectacle, but about engineering ambition colliding with reality, and how long that collision was allowed to continue. In the early 1960s, British Rail placed into passenger service a locomotive powered by engines never intended to be anywhere near a railway. These were engines originally designed for fast attack naval craft, machines built to deliver explosive bursts of power in open-air hulls, where noise, vibration, and proximity to human bodies were minor concerns. British Rail did not soften their character or redesign their core purpose. Two of those engines were mounted inside a steel locomotive body and sent directly onto the busiest main line in the country, expected to haul express passenger trains for hours at sustained high output. Nothing about the results surprised the engineers who understood what they were dealing with. Crew recollections from decades later consistently describe ear protection as standard equipment for anyone who had to enter the engine room. The engine performed exactly as designed, but the setting could not have been more different from its original environment. These engines had been built in the late 1940s to extract extreme power from the smallest possible space. They were meant to run hard for short bursts and then shut down, not to live inside an enclosed box pulling heavy trains at speed for half a day. The mechanical layout alone set it apart from anything on the railway. The engine used 18 cylinders arranged in 3 banks that formed a triangular structure with a crankshaft at each corner. All 3 crankshafts were synchronized through phasing gears that fed power into a single output shaft. It operated on a 2-stroke cycle with opposed pistons, eliminating cylinder heads and valves entirely. Airflow and exhaust were controlled through ports cut into the cylinder walls, opening and closing as pistons passed over them. This configuration produced combustion events at extremely short intervals, creating an exhaust note described in engineering literature as a rapid buzzing unlike any other diesel engine of the era. English Electric, which owned Napier at the time, recognized that this unusual engine might solve a growing problem elsewhere. By the mid-1950s, British Rail needed diesel power that could match the performance of top-tier steam locomotives on high-speed, mainline routes. Conventional diesels were proving reliable, but underpowered. English Electric built a prototype locomotive in 1955 with 2 of these marine engines installed, delivering a combined output of 3,300 horsepower. That figure placed it among the most powerful single-unit diesel locomotives operating anywhere at the time. The prototype looked radically different from anything else running in Britain. Its nose followed American styling cues, broad and assertive rather than traditional and restrained. High body sides were visually broken up with cream striping to reduce the sense of bulk, giving the locomotive a leaner appearance despite its size. It did not resemble an incremental improvement or a cautious experiment. It announced itself as something entirely new, both mechanically and visually. That prototype entered a lengthy period of testing and regular service, accumulating roughly 450,000 miles across a wide range of duties. It demonstrated extraordinary acceleration, sustained high-speed capability, and an ability to keep demanding schedules that existing diesels could not match. Yet enthusiasm was not universal. The chief mechanical engineer of the London Midland region reportedly rejected the concept outright, arguing that high-speed engines operating at 1,500 revolutions per minute were fundamentally unsuitable for railway service. The eastern region faced a different reality. Steam locomotives on the East Coast Main Line had set a performance standard that diesel traction was failing to meet. Gerard Fienne, the region's mechanical engineer, saw in the Deltic a solution that no other diesel could offer at the time. He pushed British rail management to accept the risks in exchange for performance. The result was an order for 22 production locomotives, intended to replace 55 steam engines on the route. From the beginning, everyone involved understood that noise would be a serious issue. English Electric incorporated soundproofing into the body and cab structure before the first production locomotive entered service. Running at 1,500 revolutions per minute, placed these engines far outside the norms of railway diesel operation. The two-stroke firing pattern produced acoustic characteristics unfamiliar to crews and unlike anything else on the network. Despite these measures, internal assessments found the cab noise levels unacceptable. Additional soundproofing modifications followed, eventually reducing measured levels to a range between 83 and 102 decibels, with doors and windows closed. No surviving public documentation specifies what the original figures were before modification, nor does it clarify whether that wide range reflected operating conditions, measurement locations, or differences between locomotives. Those details appear to exist only in specialist literature that has never been widely accessible. Even after modification, the numbers exceeded modern occupational health limits for prolonged exposure. Current standards require hearing protection programs at sustained levels above 85 decibels across an 8-hour shift. Crews regularly worked 6-hour London to Edinburgh runs, spending long periods at high power, where noise levels rose well beyond that threshold. Personal accounts add clarity where official records fall short. Former crew members consistently describe the engine room as a place entered only when absolutely necessary. Lingering there was widely understood to carry a risk of hearing damage. Earplugs were routinely used when accessing the engine compartment, particularly when attention was required for the steam heating boiler mounted between the two engines. That task disappeared only after electric train heating became standard in the early 1970s. Preserved examples continue to demonstrate the same characteristics. A documented cab ride on a preserved locomotive in 2019 noted that the noise remained noticeable even after decades of soundproofing improvements, suggesting how wearing it must have been for crews operating daily express services. At major East Coast stations such as King's Cross, York, Newcastle Central, and Edinburgh Waverley, the sound became part of the environment. Idling locomotives could overwhelm public address announcements. Departures remained audible long after the train had cleared the platform, the sound echoing through vast Victorian train sheds in a way no other diesel could replicate. Noise, however, was only one consequence of adapting a naval combat engine to railway service. The engine was widely described by engineers as highly strung, a term applied to machinery that demands precision handling and specialist overhaul rather than routine depot maintenance. British Rail maintained a large pool of spare engines at Doncaster to keep the fleet operational. Rapid engine swaps allowed locomotives to return to service quickly, but the system relied heavily on expertise developed by English Electric over many years. When British Rail assumed full responsibility for engine maintenance in 1970, problems escalated rapidly. Within a short period, accounts describe as many as half the fleet being unavailable simultaneously. Fractured cylinder liners, previously an occasional issue, became increasingly common. Doncaster's workshops had been designed around conventional railway equipment, and adapting them to the naval-grade tolerances required by the Deltic engines proved far more difficult than anticipated. Additional issues followed. Exhaust fires became a recurring problem, often attributed to oil accumulation in the exhaust system that ignited during sustained high-power operation. Bogies cracked under the stress of daily 100-mile-per-hour running and were replaced with stronger cast designs. By the mid-1970s, structural cracks and corrosion were appearing in the bodywork itself, raising serious concerns about longevity. By that stage, the limitations were impossible to ignore. The locomotives were loud, mechanically complex, demanding of specialist support, and increasingly expensive to maintain compared to newer designs. Yet they remained in service because nothing else could fully replace the performance they delivered. That gap was only truly closed with the introduction of high-speed train services in 1978. The standard operating procedure endured without alteration until the withdrawal was complete. The practice of storing earplugs in lockers and crews dutifully wearing them for engine room work, continued unabated until the very end. If you enjoy this kind of historical insight, please like this video and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.